Back for some maths. We're going to be using our place value table to divide by 10, 100 and 1000. Unlike multiplying, which we know things tend to get bigger when we multiply, we move to the left. It's the opposite, or the inverse. So we know that division is the inverse of multiplication, so therefore it does the opposite thing, it does the inverse thing. And instead, when we divide by 10, 100, 1000, it moves to the right. And it's how many places it moves to the right. So when we divide by 10, it moves one place to the right. When we divide by 100, it moves 2 places, and so on. And it's to do with how many zeros there are. So you can kind of look at your questions and go, well, I already know that's going 2 places to the right, that's going 1 to the right. And it might help actually if you almost think about that as a set of instructions. So the first thing, as always, when you've got your question, do draw out your place value table. Remember, you can mirror. If you cover up the ones, you can then start to mirror. So you've got your tens and your tenths, your hundreds and your hundredths, your thousands and your thousandths, and so on. And you might need to make your place value table bigger. This is just what I've done for mine. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put our number into our place value table. So it's 350. So 3 in the hundreds, 5 in the tens, and then there's no ones, but we still need to put that 0 in there. Then it's dividing, so already I know I'm going in that direction only. And then because it's 10, I'm going to move it one place. Now, all of those numbers are going to move, but I only ever draw the arrow on one, so I always start at the front or the back of the number. I'm going to start at the front just because a 3 is a nice number to work with. The 0, we might find out what happens to that. So we're going to move the 3 across, and it's going to end up in the tens, so I'm going to write it below. And it's really important we keep the order of these numbers the same. We've got our 5, our 0, and then we've got our decimal point. But actually, those zeros go on forever after the decimal. If there's nothing there, we just don't need to write them. So our answer is just 35. So we had 350, it moved to the right one place because there's 1 0, and we had our answer of 35. Same number again, but this time it's going to move 2 places, so you'd still write it out in your place value table. And this time there's going to be 2 jumps. So I'm going to start with the 3, and it's going to do 1, 2 jumps, 3, 5, 0. I'd always write all the digits out. Remember, our decimal point never moves, it's going to stay on that line. But then actually, don't need that 0. But the 5's important, I can't cross that out because it has value. So our answer is 3.5. So you can see in that instance, it's giving us a decimal answer. So it's really important to keep those digits if they are a 1 or greater after the decimal point. So again, when you're starting with your question, that's your starting number. Think about it almost as 350. We know we're moving to the right because it's divide, and then here it was moving 2 places. So it might also help when you've got your initial question to then write it out as a set of instructions. We know it's divide, it's to the right. We know it's 2 places because there's 2 zeros. It's really important as well, if we're moving past the decimal point, to make sure we do put it in and it does take place in our answer. But we don't need those zeros, because actually those zeros go on forever and ever and ever. And as really clever mathematicians, we just know we don't need them. So we don't need to show them. The only time you would need to show them is if we had the 0 and then the 5 afterwards. Because if that was our number, that 5 is actually really important because it keeps... So that 0 is really important because it keeps that 5 where it needs to be. So, draw out a place value table, pause the video and have a go at those questions. Okay, let's check some answers. So for our first one, we should have moved to the right 1 place. We should have had 29. And you might have noticed the pattern, same starting number, still moving to the right, but now 2 places. So it actually became 2.9. Here, we're moving across 2 places again to the right. So it would have been 40 decimal point and then a 2. Now, dividing by 1,000, just because the number's bigger, it doesn't have to be scary. It's just moving those 3 points across. And our answer was 56. Remember, you should have used a place value table. And then finally, all these digits have value, so they all need to remain. Unlike, because if you did have an answer like that, actually, we know it's the same as 56, so we just didn't need to write it. So our answer here should have been 284.37. So keep your place value table and then have a go at creating some questions of your own. Just be really careful if they're moving past the decimal point to make sure they're retaining those digits if they have value. To make it easier, just use some round numbers instead, so just put lots of zeros in, and you know, after they've gone past the decimal point, if there's nothing else, just like here, we just didn't need them.